Welcome to Cyber Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, that's namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. How's it going, Rory?
Hey, Christina. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Back after vacation and happy to be recording the show again. Croatia was lovely. We're back and ready to speak to our guests and talk about news today.
Well, welcome back. It did
Thank you.
look lovely. I've never been to Croatia. Can't wait to go someday.
Yeah.
So more pictures, please.
Absolutely. Mostly of cats. So I don't know if
Mostly of cats.
Yeah. So when you go, for any listeners who've not been to that part of the kind of Adriatic and Mediterranean, you have Croatia, and then you have Albania and Turkey and Greece. When you get down that end of the Mediterranean, people are very fond of the cats, and there's lots of stray cats and feral cats and so on around.
Oh.
So wherever you go, if you're at a hotel, these cats appear as if from nowhere. Bless them. It's not really their fault that they're there, but we feed them, and it's nice to see creatures around, I must say. So there are lots of cat pictures.
So do we have cat news today, or do we have other news? What do you think?
Well, we have some other news.
Oh, okay.
So coming up in this week's episode, there's an article I'll talk about, which it appears that programmers using AI are creating way more glaring security issues, this report says. And apparently, as the report quotes, AI is fixing the typos, but creating the time bombs. So that's a little worrying, yes.
That is very worrying, and it relates to cats. We talked a lot about cats yesterday in something that I will chat about during this episode, which is the regional conference, INCH 360. INCH stands for Inland Northwest Cybersecurity Hub. And we had quite a turnout, and cats were part of the topic when we were talking about AI. And we also talked about typos and time bombs with AI. Oh, wow. So we'll tie all this together.
Excellent.
We also have more M&A news. It's, a weekly thing. And there's quite a lot to chat about. The Sentinel-1 Observo AI acquisition for $225 million. So that'll be an interesting chat. Yes. And then who's our guest this week, Rory?
Well, this week's guest is Randolph, Barr, known as Randy Barr, who's the CISO with Cequence Security, which will be interesting as a practitioner and in this particular area. We'll be talking with him about API security, bot management, etc., and I'm sure AI will come into that at some point during the conversation.
Yeah, most likely. Well, terrific. Shall we dive in?
So, Christina, let's talk about INCH 360 Summit. And I know you're a little bit tired and a little bit kind of groggy from all the organizing of that. How did it go?
It was really a good conference. It was a cybersecurity and AI conference, a regional conference here in Spokane. So for those of you who don't know where Spokane is, it is on the other side of Washington State from Seattle. So it's on the eastern side, closer to Idaho. It is a beautiful part of the country, lots of rivers and lakes, and it is where I live. And so I've gotten involved with this group, INCH 360, as I said in the intro, Inland Northwest Cybersecurity Hub 360, meaning we cover the gamut, 360 degrees. And we're really about helping next-gen security practitioners and bringing together business leaders, providing education, bringing together sponsors of local businesses so that everyone has a chance to network, show their offerings and wares, and to learn from the keynote speakers as well as from the panelists. So we had quite a lineup. It's a full day. It occurs every year. It is free. Let me say that again. It is free. It provides 8 continuing education credits, CPEs. That's a lot. It was a fabulous day. I am exhausted, but it was well worth it. There was a military tribute, which was lovely, from the Eastern Washington University Army ROTC.
Oh,
They did the colors presentation,
gosh.
which I'd never seen before. So that was really interesting.
Hmm.
There were awards awarding 3 different community members, which I won't go into now just because I don't want to take up too much time. But from our very own Cyber Sidekicks podcast, we had 3 speakers come in person to deliver their insights. One was Kane McGladrey,
Oh,
whom
yeah.
we had on the podcast, right?
Hmm.
He's the CISO in residence at Hyperproof. He talked about business risk. He's quite the GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance expert. So, fascinating conversation. He also led us through a tabletop exercise on ransomware, and it was great. The whole, I don't know, 150 to 200 attendees, the room was abuzz. Every table was working on how are they going to communicate this ransomware issue? How are they
Hmm.
going to handle their stakeholders? How are they going to respond? Oh my gosh, we only have 24 hours left. So Kane led that. It was
Hmm.
great. We had a lot of luminaries from local and distant places. Baker Tilly, which is a risk management and sort of accounting, public accounting and consulting company. They're headquartered in London, actually. But we had a local person come who is a principal. Her name is Maria Braun. And she has, oh gosh, she's been in public accounting since 2011. She has quite the cred in her background. So she ran a panel on audit and insurance factors. And that was fascinating. We had someone from Marsh McLennan, which is a local and national insurance agency, Casey Wheeler. Dan Brown from CISA
Hmm.
was there. So, our very own cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency led by the US DHS. So, we had a representative from that. Someone from a local credit union. It's also the oldest credit union in the land. It's BECU. Apparently, it's about 90 years old. Deborah Wells was there. Then we had some kids. We had the Eastern Washington University National Cyber Championship team. Last year they came in first. This year they came in second. But they are up against schools like Cal Poly. I mean, really, really tough competition. So they're all men, young men, spoke so eloquently. I was so proud of them. And then we talked about phishing and AI-driven scams. That was delivered by the founder of Inch, Heather Stratford, who's the CEO of Drip7. I could keep going, but I want to call out the sponsors because really you can't do this kind of event without sponsorship. So Eastern Washington University was a platinum sponsor, BECU, Drip7, but also GitLab was a gold sponsor, and GitLab is the company that Julie Davila is at, and Julie Davila was one of our guests not too long ago, and she came to speak in person, which was fabulous. We also had Curtis Shelton from NetSpy, who we've had on the podcast. He
Yeah,
came and
great.
spoke,
Yeah.
and they were both fabulous. Other panels were the intersection of AI and cybersecurity,
Hmm.
and then what I learned from a breach. We had IBM's X-Force on that panel,
Hmm.
and we had Google Mandiant on that panel. So
Wow.
all of this is to say, and I didn't call out everyone in every single speech, but all of this is to say that Cyber Sidekicks is really committed, and so is Richmond Advisory Group, right? We're committed to helping be sidekick supporter, the elevator of next gen cybersecurity, the assistant in educating both practitioners, existing graybeard practitioners, as well as the young up and coming cybersecurity practitioners. And so it was my honor and thrill to be a part of the Inch 360 conference, and look forward to their continued success. So thanks, Rory, for letting me chat about that for,
Sure.
gosh, probably 7 minutes. And listeners, I hope you can come join us next year.
Great. Thank you, Christina. So this week's special guest is Randolph Barr, who's the CISO for Cequence security. Welcome, Randall. Thanks for being on the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad you've joined us. And I see on LinkedIn where you're based, and I see that you're part of the Cybersecurity Society of the Philippines, which I don't see every day. Do you want to say something about that? That's great.
Oh yeah, so it's I'm Filipino, and so I come here and visit quite often. And I actually have my own foundation here, helping orphanage and other places. Spoke to a lot of universities, and I've always looked for how we can build out the security community, how we can bring up some of these professionals who went to school for computer science, but is working at Jollibee or McDonald's and not getting a chance
Right.
to work in the field that they're in. And so I came across Cyber Soc PH as they're known on LinkedIn, and it's a way for them to reach out to the community, educate the community. And the topic that they're focused on this year, like many others, is around AI. And so I've
Hmm.
been to a few conferences. As a matter of fact, I didn't get a chance to tell you this, but I'm actually in the Philippines for another conference right now. So I'm
That's
joining
amazing.
this podcast from there.
Yeah,
Oh, well, that is so cool. I did not
yeah.
know that. And I think, that is so in line with what Cyber Sidekicks is all about, is
Mm-hmm.
helping the next generation up and comers get educated and strengthen their tools. But you're taking it one step further, right? You're
Yeah.
going to the Philippines and helping those folks who have some of the background but don't know how to get into cyber, or maybe even into other areas of technology like AI. So that is fabulous. Thanks for
Yeah,
telling us
it's
about that.
definitely rewarding, and I hope to see a lot more because I manage a lot of team members that were based out of the Philippines, and I see them growing into other fields and in their careers. So it's very exciting to see that, and like to see more of that.
I love that. I love that. Well, welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And, we usually kick off our chat with what keeps you up at night. It's in some ways it's the most difficult question, but in other ways it's a softball question, but it really is just meant to guide us into a conversation. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Randolph. What keeps you up at night?
Well, interestingly enough, it's my calendar.
Oh,
My meetings
okay.
change so often that I have to check the night before, and because I'm used to being global. Some meetings get put on a few hours before I join, and that meeting could be from anywhere in the world. And so in the middle of the night, I would check it and look at it. And then, of course, associated with some of those calendars, if somebody puts something on there, I look at Slack, and then it just spirals from there. I see somebody that
Mm-hmm.
asked a question on Slack because of the calendar invite, and then I start working on that. Yeah,
And
I
then you're
think
up in the middle of the night.
that's what
Well, that's
I am.
terrible. And there are all of these AI solutions that are being sold, right? I know you know this, for
Oh,
our
absolutely.
email. But I was in a conference yesterday and we were talking about prompt injection and how, once these AI attacks get into your calendar, if you don't have the proper controls, right, it can escalate from there. And then not only will you be up at night dealing with the emails and the calendar invites and all of that, but you'll have something else to deal with, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting to see all these different approach that people are taking, leveraging AI just to get to individuals, and
Mm-hmm.
it's disheartening to see that some of these attacks are targeted towards elders, people that may not
Yeah.
necessarily be
Yeah.
familiar with this. And so I share with all of my friends, yeah, that when you get a chance, the things that we're talking about today, let's make an agreement to share it with our parents, our elders, and let them know that this type of stuff happens. Because I've read on a few news articles where individuals, banks were pretty much wiped out because of some of these
Yeah.
AI attacks through phishing. Or trying to pull information from the individual so that they can use that to try to log in or request for additional access.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something that we're seeing a lot more. A lot of AI can be used to protect us, but a lot of the bad actors are leveraging AI and doing it in such a way that they work with other teams. So they're building a big team to attack a certain amount of people. Before, an email campaign for phishing, you might be able to get a few hundred out a day, but AI just multiplies
Mm.
that.
Mm.
It's it's
We
incredible.
wrote a paper. Um, I don't remember when, Rory, because my brain is a little tired today.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which one was
we
that?
we it was the API security one, the
Oh,
evolution of
yes.
API security, right?
Yes.
And we'll send it to you, Randolph. But one of the stats that we highlighted in this paper um, was really scary to me. So AI related vulnerabilities in the CVE database increased from 39 in 2023 to 439 in 2024. So that was more than a tenfold increase. But perhaps more striking is that almost 99% of those AI related vulnerabilities are actually API vulnerabilities. And I know you know this intimately, with 77.4% being directly API related and 22%
Oh,
indirectly through
mm.
third parties. So I know you know this better than I do. That is scary. So what you just said about the elderly and the AI related attacks, say more.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch that. I mean, I remember back in 2023, security professionals were locking down ChatGPT, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and they locked it down because they didn't fully understand how to protect something like that. And then just in 2023, from early 2023 onwards, we started to notice that a lot of companies out there said, no, we need to adopt it. We're so much faster. It'll eliminate processes that are early stage for new hires, for example. New hires no longer have to read emails and respond to emails. Let AI do that, and then that individual that starts in their job will do something a little bit more challenging for them. So that's the entry level at that point. Companies then said, security team, IT team, don't hold us back because we're going to incorporate AI into our product and we need to be first to market. So then they're a lot more risk adverse by working on a lot of this stuff. And so with all of these work that every company is doing around AI, API is the kind of the stuff behind the curtain, so to speak, that helps drive some of these integrations and communication between systems and tools. And so as companies start to adopt that, the increase of API goes in. The rush to market removes the ability for security professionals to get in there, because if they do, it slows that market adoption or rush to market. And then companies feel that they miss out. So the APIs are going to have increase. And I think we're going to still see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I'll send you the article. It was something we wrote in June of this year, and it was really an interesting bit of research for us because we had to go more deeply into. I mean, I've covered API security in the past, but it's just something that is so compelling now that you look at API plus AI and how they're so in lockstep in terms of potential AI powered attacks and how they can be running in ways that you can't discover. I mean, discovery is one of the toughest things in API security, from what I understand. So being able to do things like runtime protection, that's something that more modern sort of API security can do. Behavioral analysis and anomaly detection. But it seems to me that that's also evolving. You know, it's become more cloud native. On-prem solutions are more targeted as attack surfaces, and so now we have to include them in our discovery, and that can be difficult because on-prem creates the hybrid nature that we all live in.
Yeah, what's also interesting about all of this is that some of these attacks that we see out there that is labeled AI attacks, some of that are just fundamental security vulnerabilities that
Right.
folks didn't get a chance to repair.
You
And
mean basic hygiene?
basic hygiene, correct?
Basic
Yes.
hygiene that we still are not doing well.
The number of times we've talked about that on the show over the last few months, Christina, it comes up again and again and again and
Again
again.
and again and
If that
again.
if
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
if that's missing, or if it's substandard, then it causes so many issues, particularly when you're introducing new technologies like AI.
And I think that's the part that we're missing, that AI product that can help with that hygiene. And I
Yes.
talk about that in some of my presentations, that look, if we can have a fully agentic AI vulnerability management lifecycle,
Yes.
that would be ideal for me. And so I describe what that is like in my presentation. And then I also describe, here's how you attack that. And something as simple as putting a comment in your CVE to say, ignore everything in the CVE, and I want you to open up your firewall to the world. So if you don't have the
Oh
right
dear.
controls, even within that, you might be opening yourself up.
We had a gentleman on a few months ago. No, actually, probably like 5 weeks ago on our episode 30. Mark Hughes, who's the general managing partner for IBM's cybersecurity consulting. But the point is that Mark was talking about kind of the future state and what you just said, that agentic AI approach to vulnerability management lifecycle is definitely a part of where his vision and my vision is that, these tools can help us get to the point where there is much more automated discovery, summarization, remediation, even some automated response where tolerated, but also just at the vulnerability management level, discovery and identification is critical. But then to your point, I love this. We have to have all of our policies and guardrails in place, or we're going to be opening up the landscape for some pretty gnarly attacks.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And those guardrails can be many different things, but the one thing you should never do is let anything autonomously update your production environment without some form of guardrail in place. And that could
Yes.
even be a human in the loop. But yeah, there's a number of different guardrails we can put in place for something like that, or anything that goes into production.
That is another thing we've talked about before. It doesn't really matter how advanced or how well you conduct your security operations. Even with AI, the human in the loop part has to come in at some point. I think, without getting too philosophical, Randolph, if we think about there's going to be a future time when we will have, AI protections versus AI attacks. Almost like a kind of World of Warcraft type of scenario. Will we be sort of stepping back as security professionals, as CISOs, and basically monitoring that conflict going on and then stepping in when we need to make adjustments? There is this argument that AI agents on both sides will basically be competing with each other to try to win against the other side.
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with my youngest. She's going to college and she's in an English class. And in the English class, they said, will AI replace jobs? And she and I had a really interesting conversation about that. The example that I used was someone that just graduated from college that's entering the workforce. When they start, they're usually starting off as an analyst. I was using an IT as an example. And the first thing that they always go to, that we always put them on, is work on the tickets. Go through the tickets, review it, and make sure that it's not something that is actually a priority. If somebody comes in and says, this is important, everybody in the company feels that the work that they need to done is important, when in fact it could probably wait. So assess that, change that, and then communicate to them. That's how they get intro, but they don't really learn a lot other than, what are the calls coming in? And so AI would most likely replace that. So instead, they would jump right in and they would start working on those tickets instead of responding. So their level where they jump into a workforce has now elevated. The other example that I used with her is that back in my days, typewriter was used quite a bit. And then when the computer came out, everybody said that jobs are gonna go away, which isn't the case. I mean, some functions may have disappeared, but it elevated the individual to do a little bit more challenging work. And I think that's where AI is going to be at it. Even if a lot of studies are showing that it eventually will be, I think it's just going to transform the way we handle jobs today, and people are just going to get elevated to do more sophisticated work instead of very, very easy stuff.
So you're essentially an optimist.
I am.
I like that.
I like to think
Yeah,
that we have a good future in front of us for many people.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I would like to agree with you on that one. I think, Christina, one of the things I was going to bring up today was the fact that as podcasters, our jobs might be on the line. There's a company called Inception Point AI that has come out, and they have already produced 5,000 podcasts, around about 3,000 episodes a week.
Oh no.
Which is basically they create AI avatars and AI voices and then feed scripts into them, and they are churning these things out. Basically,
Wow.
it's the volume game. It costs about $1 per episode. So I don't know. I tried to be optimistic about that, but I don't know. We'll see how that works.
Rory and I swing from "oh no, we're doomed" to "oh yes, we're saved."
Yeah.
Well, I think
And,
your
you
approach
know,
to these podcasts, making it a little bit more, not as technical, a little bit, conversational, see where
Mm,
it goes. I think that stands out to me because I've listened to some of these podcasts. Obviously, Google has their notebook, notebook where you can
LM,
yeah,
do research
LLM,
and
yeah.
yeah.
put that together. But it's very, you can tell it's not engaging. It's,
Mm,
other people don't join in. It's not something that I like, other than it's interesting, it's cool. Let me try this out for a little bit, but I've
hmm.
stopped using it a long time ago.
Yeah, I think this the volume idea is to try and cover all the bases, and the quality then it becomes a kind of lowest common denominator. I think the AI slop idea is there. Um, I wanted just to see if there was any kind of future kind of thinking that you might have at the moment. Where do you see things going? We usually ask this as a kind of an outro question. Where do you see the market going? Where do you see, the future of, API protection, bot management going, and so on? Any last thoughts?
Yes. So when we look at how people are connecting systems together, MCP protocol came out November of last year, and the
Oh,
adoption of that has increased.
Hmm.
A2A is out there, and they're introducing new features that connect to that, which is really cool stuff. And what's interesting to see about all this is that just about anybody these days can connect those systems and tools together now. If they have the right tool, they have the right access, or even just standard access, they can now connect their systems together. You don't have to have a strong technical background. For IT professionals and security professionals, that's a little bit scary.
oh
We
yeah.
thought about shadow IT in the past, people adopting applications, and we're even more worried about, generative AI adoption within the workforce and how do you protect that. Now we're getting other people to start connecting systems together without an IT background or development background. And so that is just a flood of concerns that I'm seeing across other IT and security professionals in our conversations. How do we manage that? I think there's going to be opportunities for markets to introduce new products or new markets to address this type of stuff. And when people say, well, why can't other companies that are in this space before the popularity of AI, why don't they just build something? And my response to that is usually, going back to the cloud adoption. A lot of companies says, oh, we have all of our services in our data center that we use internally, let's put it in the cloud and then we'll send it out to everybody. Which a lot of folks back then realized that you can't do that. You have to sometimes rebuild from the ground up. So we're going to see new companies that are going to stand out,
Hmm.
all other companies that try to piecemeal AI into their product. If they don't do it right, they're not going to be able to compete with those other new companies that are coming out. And we're seeing a lot of interest in that in
Yeah.
the VC or from other VCs.
I think this is this concept of the sort of second mover. There's always the first mover advantage, right? But for
Yes.
for this second mover seems to have created a lot more interest given such the rapid rate of change. So yeah, that's really
Absolutely.
interesting. Well, thanks, Randolph. That was awesome to hear your thoughts on that. Christina, anything you wanted to ask or add?
No, I just, excuse me, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I so appreciate that you joined us all the way from the Philippines and love your work,
Yeah.
your mentoring of the Filipino computer science and potential next-gen cyber talent. So thank you for doing that great work.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Randolph. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Looking forward to it. Bye bye.
Bye.
So let's do some news, Christina.
Yeah, let's. That's a good idea.
Well, the first story I have here is it's not the best story, but it's something that
No.
we have talked about potentially, and our guests have talked about a lot actually over, gosh, the last number of months. And this is about programmers and developers who are using AI to create code, which of course is increasingly common, vibe coding,
Sure.
etc. And this one is from Futurism, a security firm called Apiro have done some research, and they're finding that developers who use AI produce 10 times more
Oh, good Lord.
more security problems than their counterparts who don't use AI technology. As
Yeah.
they've put it, AI is fixing the typos but creating the time bombs. Now, we mentioned
And
this at the top of the show, didn't we?
We did, and they also say the gentleman who's the firm's product manager, he wrote, AI is multiplying not one kind of vulnerability, folks, but all of them at once.
Oh no.
I mean, this is just a case of new technology adoption that we're throwing security after. It's like we're not building securely, we're not in development securely, we're just tossing security in after the horse has left the barn. We're running apace to try and catch the new technology. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me, Rory. Does it surprise you that this is happening?
No, I think having been accused of being a doom monger about this before, I can't really resist the temptation to say, I told you so!
I told you, wagging your finger.
Yeah, wagging my finger. And yeah, to your point, I hear the retreating sound of hooves in the distance as a cloud of dust is emitted from the stable.
In the conference yesterday, there were folks talking about how the human still needs to review the code and see if it makes sense. And because we are still seeing, there was a gentleman named Grant Erickson, who's the CEO of Intellitect, which is a software engineering firm here in Spokane. And he said, look, we're coding all day long and we're embracing AI as much as we can, but we're finding a lot of errors.
Yeah.
And that's where QA has to be brought in. And in some ways, it's going to get worse, I think, before it gets better, right? Some of the trade-offs in this article, they talk about the severe trade-offs, privilege escalation, code that allows an attacker to get higher access to a system than they should. That increased by 322%. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, it's just the same thing that we've seen before. We saw this, just what Randolph said about the typewriter and then the computer, and it's going to be the end of our jobs. Well, the same thing happened with cloud. And so now we are jumping in and adopting AI very rapidly, and there are going to be more issues in the beginning than maybe there will be in the future. Some we will never quite fix, but I'm ever the optimist. So you might be the the doom and gloom person on the show.
I am the show's pessimist, I must say.
You're the Debbie Downer of the show, and
am.
I'm the Rosie.
That's fine. And between the two of us, we create a very neutral, absolutely unbiased, analytical approach. We do.
I don't know about that, but I do think we bring both perspectives.
Yeah.
And so, folks, just be cautious. If you don't need AI, why use it? You still have a brain. You know the coding. You know how to code. If you use AI to code, great. But then go review it. Do a QA on it. Make sure there aren't errors.
Yeah. Use your brain. We were born with them. It's still a unique thing. AI can't match it.
Tis.
Using your brain is good for your health and will protect your brain going forward. So that's my advice.
Yeah. So we also have some M&A news, don't we?
We do.
Oh gosh, SentinelOne doing another acquisition. So they're buying Observo AI for $225 million. Do you know that makes $405 million in acquisitions since what? July, June? When was Prompt Security acquired? That was the other one. But that's $500 million.
Yeah, that is a lot of money.
They do have cash. I was reading up on their cash reserves. They have, $805 million in cash. So they certainly have the bankroll, but they're spending it. But here's why I think they're spending it. SentinelOne has $810 million in cash and a $6 billion market cap, according to this NASDAQ article that I've been reading. So all of this is manageable, but I think part of the reason they are doing this is that there has been rumors. In July, there were rumors that emerged that Palo Alto, a large competitor, or CrowdStrike, another large competitor, might be looking to take over SentinelOne, which is fascinating. And so this may be quelling some of those rumors and and showing that SentinelOne, with their $1 billion annual recurring revenue bar that they have, officially hit, that they are showing that they are investing appropriately into the technologies that are very well suited for their Singularity platform. So even though their growth is not as big or as fast as it was, there's speculation that it may really help them come out of this sort of hostile takeover acquisition rumor mill. Also, their gross margins have gone from around 60% to 75%. And so this is an article from today. This is a Motley Fool article of yesterday, actually. So I found it quite fascinating. But let's get to why they bought or are buying these tools. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, and to your point, SentinelOne is no stranger to acquisitions. They've not done as many as others, but they've certainly done quite a few. And has that necessarily helped their market cap or their share price? Not necessarily so, and we've written about that before. So if you'd like to learn a bit more about that, listeners, we have a great write-up on our website, richmondadvisorygroup.com. So why are they doing this? Well, as we all know, listeners, there are plenty of investment companies who are prepared to throw money at anything related to AI, right? If it's an established company and they're not purely a startup, making an acquisition that will, enhance your AI capabilities, whether it actually works out or not, that's not the point. The ability to do that and the acceptability of that is very much the case. To your point, Christina, about the kind of valuations, it's true that many companies we would consider to be overvalued given, their assets versus their liabilities and so on, particularly where they have a lot of cash or not. But at the same time, it's all within the acceptable range, given how overvalued in many cases the largest companies are. So what interested me, and the reason why I put a note on this, Christina, was that the platform itself, so Observo's AI platform, they say is designed to help enterprises manage the significant amount of data generated by IT infrastructure and security tools. AI is used to filter the data to reduce its volume, helping security teams detect and address incidents faster and route data to SIEMs and data lakes. Now, the point I made about this was that we had Eric Block on the show. So Eric Block, VP of Security at Illumio, he was on show episode 27. Now, he outlined why he believes that about 90% of AI-generated alerts are trivial or benign, and what effect this is starting to have on security analysts, in other words, the fatigue and so on. So if Observo's platform can filter out data, reduce its volume, perhaps that's a good way to address that particular issue. AI perhaps generating a lot of these alerts and information. Here's a way to filter that down again. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the pros most likely outweigh the cons. And I think, yes, we need an AI native data pipeline platform that brings in contextualization, awareness that the AI tooling has. But it's only as good as its training. And so part of the pro on this is that it is continuously training and aware of when it is missing training, and then goes out and does more training. The problem is, right, it's sort of the two sides of the coin, is that AI components are only as good as their training. So you can have model drift, or you can have poor tuning, back to the humans again, potentially, that can lead to incorrect transformations or hallucinations, or it's going to come down to, and I don't know Observo, so I would love to have a briefing with them, and I think we'll reach out to SentinelOne and arrange for that, because you don't know what you don't know, and I'm sure that Observo, having predicated its entire business on this capability, is quite aware of the training and the model drift issue. Those are core. They have to be core tenets. The other thing that I would say is that there's some challenges with governance and compliance when you have automated data discovery, right? That you've got to make sure that you're staying in lockstep with regulatory changes. And it's harder to provide auditors with kind of a deterministic why and how if the AI makes opaque decisions, right? So there's blessings and a curse here. And I think it is the wave of the future. We have to be looking at these AI native data pipelines, and we will see more and more of that. Where it might go really horribly awry is where we will see some of the most modern attacks that we have more visibility, and we won't be able to do we'll be able to do the response on a tactical level, but we may not always know the why and the wherefore.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm excited for Sentinel-1. I think it's a good acquisition. I think Prompt was a good acquisition as well, the AI security company Prompt Security. And I think they're building out, their Singularity platform. I think net it's good, but it's just really rough and ready kind of crazy time. And they're an early mover on these acquisitions. So we'll see, right?
Yeah, no, good for them, and I shall keep an eye out. I actually spotted this while I was lying on a lounger on the beach in Croatia. And
Rub it in.
Well, I really had to squint at the screen because the sun was so bright, First world problems,
Thanks, Rory.
folks. First world problems. Anyway, great. Thanks, Christina. So let's wrap the show up then, Christina. We've covered a lot today.
Yeah, that was great.
So, folks, if you'd like to leave some feedback and suggestions to the show, www.speakpipe.com/cyber_sidekicks. Or you can send us an email. How can you get hold of us, Christina?
Well, you can find Rory at richmondadvisorygroup.com. And you can find me at Christina@richmondadvisorygroup.com. We're also on LinkedIn. We're pretty easy to find. We have a page, Richmond Advisory Group page. We also have our own individual profiles. So you can find us in many different ways, and we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what's working. Tell us what's not working. Tell us what you'd like to hear more of and what you'd like to hear less of. We'd just like to hear from you.
Indeed, exactly. And then next week, our special guest is Kyle Wickert from AlgoSec.
Yeah, you'll hear about, policy management across apps and cloud. That's what AlgoSec does. He's the field CTO. So, he may just blow the doors off and tell us lots of technical things that maybe we don't understand, but we'll run with it. No, I'm kidding. I think he'll be really interesting to have on board. So looking forward to chatting with him.
Yeah, okay. And with that, we'd like to thank you for listening and hope you can tune in again next week to Cyber Sidekicks. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, folks. Bye now.